The universe had always been a place of endless possibilities. But no one had expected Earth to be caught in the middle of a cosmic war. It started with a flash in the sky. A bright streak of light, too fast to be a shooting star, tore through space and made its way toward Earth. The first signs of trouble were subtle. A shift in the atmosphere. Unexplained gravitational fluctuations. But by the time anyone realized what was happening, it was too late. Out of nowhere, thousands of ships appeared in Earth's orbit, descending from the black void. These were not like anything humanity had ever seen. Sleek, dark, and massive, they filled the sky like a swarm of locusts. Their designs were beyond human comprehension, organic and mechanical at the same time, moving with precision and grace, as if they were alive. The ships came from a place so far away, so foreign, that no one on Earth had ever heard of it. They came from the Galactic Empire. The ships cloaked themselves in a field that made them invisible to Earth sensors, leaving the planet's defense systems completely blind to their approach. The sky was silent, until it wasn't. Suddenly, with a deafening roar, the cloaking devices dropped, and the alien vessels revealed themselves in full force. From above, they were like dark clouds, blotting out the sun, casting Earth into shadow. Massive, intimidating, their sheer size dwarfing anything humanity had ever built. They floated menacingly in the atmosphere, their sleek hulls reflecting the dim light of Earth's dying day. On the ground, chaos erupted. The world's leaders scrambled to activate Earth's defense systems, but all their attempts were futile. Satellites fired desperate pulses of energy into the sky, but the alien ships merely absorbed them as if they were nothing. The AI-controlled defense systems, which had been designed to protect Earth from any threat, failed miserably against the sophisticated technology of the Galactic Empire. From within the control rooms, the fear was palpable. The commanders, usually calm and composed, had wide eyes glued to their screens, watching in horror as their best weapons were rendered useless. This can't be happening," one of them muttered under his breath. A sense of helplessness gripped the planet. Earth, the cradle of humanity, was nothing but a speck in the vastness of the galaxy. The tyrant, the leader of the Galactic Empire, had come to Earth not to make a peaceful conquest, but to annihilate it. His fleet was unmatched in power. His forces, including highly advanced AI-driven warriors and robots, landed all over the world. Cities were leveled, entire nations crumbled under the sheer weight of the attack. Earth's defenses were obliterated one by one. The people of Earth tried to fight back, but it was like fighting against a storm. Explosions shook the ground, entire buildings were reduced to rubble, and the once proud armies of Earth were overwhelmed. Nothing seemed to stop the tyrant's forces. The ground trembled beneath the unstoppable force, and the sky above was filled with the terrifying sounds of alien technology ripping through the planet. A sense of dread and hopelessness spread across the world. People ran for cover, hoping for survival, but deep down, they knew the truth. Earth was doomed. The tyrant's forces were too powerful, and no one had the strength to resist them. Just as the world seemed to be on the brink of total collapse, the camera shifts its focus to a different scene. Amidst the devastation of a destroyed city, where the air is thick with smoke and the ground is cracked and burning, a small figure moves quietly. It's a child. His name is Alex. Barely 12 years old, with dirt smeared across his face and his clothes torn from the chaos around him. He had seen the world fall apart in a matter of hours. He had seen his neighbors, his family, all of them consumed by the ruthless power of the alien invaders. But Alex was different. While the world seemed to be drowning in fear, he stood there, amidst the rubble, still determined. Despite the nightmare unfolding around him, Alex didn't panic. His eyes were sharp, scanning the surroundings, searching for something. With each step, he moved with purpose, like someone who knew exactly where they were going. Then, he stopped. There, buried beneath the wreckage of a collapsed building, Alex found what he had been searching for, a small, ancient relic, tucked away and hidden for generations. It was something his father had told him about in the past, something the family had kept safe for centuries, a relic passed down through the ages. A relic that held the secrets to humanity's past. As Alex pulled the object from the rubble, the world around him seemed to pause. It was a small, metal artifact, worn with age but still glowing with a faint, mysterious energy. The moment his fingers brushed against it, he felt a surge of power. He didn't understand what it was, but it felt different. Powerful. For a moment, Alex stood in awe of the object. He didn't know how it had survived the chaos, or why it was so important. But deep down, he knew one thing for sure, it was something the aliens had missed. They had no idea what it was, but Alex did. He could feel it. This relic could change everything. As the alien fleet continued to prepare for their final strike, ready to rain fire down on Earth from orbit, Alex knew he had to act. The massive ships above were preparing for an orbital bombardment that would wipe out the remaining survivors. The Earth's last defense had already been destroyed, and all hope seemed lost. But not for Alex. With a firm grip on the relic, he whispered to himself, "It's not over yet." The words were barely a murmur, but they held more conviction than anything he had ever said before. The child, who had been hiding from the enemy until now, was about to become humanity's last hope. As the tyrant's forces continued their descent, a monstrous barrage of energy weapons fired from the alien ships high above. Earth's sky seemed to crack open, with flashes of light tearing through the clouds, signaling the impending destruction. The people of Earth braced themselves for the final blow. But something unexpected happened. In the midst of the destruction, Alex began to move. He wasn't just running in fear like the others. He was running with purpose. His heart was pounding in his chest, his mind racing, but he couldn't stop now. He had no choice. Holding the relic tightly in his hands, Alex sprinted through the chaos, weaving between fallen structures and dodging bursts of energy that came from the alien ships above. His feet seemed to glide over the broken streets, his focus narrowed to one thing, getting to the center of the destruction, where Earth's last hope might just lie. And as Alex approached the heart of the city, where the final remnants of humanity's military forces were gathering, a sudden thought flashed through his mind: could this relic really save Earth? He didn't know yet, but one thing was certain, if there was any chance at all, it was through this small object. The child's defiance, the relic's mysterious power, and humanity's will to survive were the only things left between Earth and total annihilation. As Alex stood on the shattered streets, staring up at the alien fleet above, he felt something stir deep inside him. His pulse quickened, his breath steady, as he prepared for what was to come. The relic pulsed in his hand, as though it had awakened after centuries of slumber. He took a deep breath and, without hesitation, made his way toward the heart of the city, ready to face whatever the tyrant's forces had in store. The battle for Earth had just begun, the darkness of space seemed to stretch on forever, but it was no match for the cold, calculating intelligence of the Galactic Tyrant. A being whose mind was controlled by an advanced artificial intelligence, the Tyrant was more machine than man. His heart, if he had one, had long been replaced with circuits, data streams, and algorithms. His primary objective was simple: conquer. And Earth, with its thriving human population and rich resources, was his next target. From his command ship, a colossal warship that dwarfed anything Earth had ever built, the Tyrant observed the planet's struggle. Through cold, emotionless sensors, he watched as humanity's defenses fell one after another. The alien ships in orbit began to launch devastating bombardments, raining hellfire upon Earth's major cities. Lasers, plasma bursts, and missiles tore through the sky, slicing apart buildings like paper. Cities that had once stood as symbols of human achievement, like New York, Paris, and Tokyo, were reduced to rubble in mere moments. The defenders on the ground, soldiers, civilians, and scientists, tried desperately to fight back, but their weapons were useless against the relentless alien technology. Earth's best and brightest, those who had dedicated their lives to protecting the planet, were wiped out like ants beneath the tyrant's boot. The tyrant issued commands without emotion, watching as the world was destroyed. To him, this was nothing more than an inconvenience, a minor detail in his endless conquest of the galaxy. Earth was a simple target, and the destruction of the human race would be yet another victory for his empire. Amidst the chaos, as the last remnants of humanity's defenses were annihilated, a small figure moved through the ruins of a shattered city. Alex, the young boy who had unknowingly held the key to Earth's survival, felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. His heart raced, and his thoughts swirled with uncertainty. How could one child stand against an enemy so powerful? How could a single relic, however mysterious, possibly be enough to stop the Galactic Tyrant? But in the depths of the chaos, something stirred within Alex. It was a force stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. The relic in his hands pulsed with energy, glowing faintly. It was almost as if it was alive, as though it was responding to the immense power surrounding him. Alex had no idea how it worked, but he could feel its energy coursing through him, calling him to action. As he crouched behind a ruined building, hiding from the ongoing assault, his parents, his father, a seasoned soldier, and his mother, tried to shield him. His father, who had always been his protector, had never shown fear. But today was different. The walls were closing in, and Alex could see the exhaustion and fear in his father's eyes. "Stay down, Alex. Stay close," his father whispered, his voice strained with urgency. But Alex didn't listen. He couldn't. The sense of destiny that had come over him was too strong. He needed to do something. He needed to fight back. "I can help," Alex said, his voice filled with determination. His father, who had always seen his son as just a boy, hesitated. The look in his eyes spoke volumes. He knew the situation was dire. But he also saw the fire in his son's gaze, the same fire that had once burned in his own heart. "Alex, it's too dangerous. You don't." Before his father could finish his sentence, a deafening explosion echoed in the distance. The shockwave hit them with full force, knocking Alex and his father to the ground. Dust and debris filled the air, and when Alex managed to lift his head, his heart sank. His father was lying motionless, a deep wound in his chest from a blast of alien energy. His mother screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the noise of the war outside. In those terrifying moments, Alex's world seemed to slow down, the noises of battle fading into the background. His father's body was still warm, but the life was gone from his eyes. The world had gone quiet. Alex knelt beside his father, his breath shallow as he stared at the man who had always been his hero. His mind raced with thoughts of how he could stop this, how he could make this right. But there was no time for thinking. There was only action. His father's final words echoed in his mind, "You are humanity's hope." In those words, Alex found the strength he needed. The weight of the world rested on his young shoulders, but he wasn't going to let it crush him. He would honor his father's sacrifice. He would fight. For his family, for his world, for humanity. With a newfound resolve, Alex rose to his feet, clutching the relic tightly in his hand. His heart beat in sync with its mysterious power, and he could feel the energy it contained coursing through him. "I will save Earth," he whispered to himself. As Alex stood there, the reality of the situation hit him hard. His father was gone. The man who had taught him how to fight, how to survive, was no longer there to protect him. Alex had always known this day could come, the day when Earth's defenses would fall, when humanity's strength would be tested like never before. But he had never imagined it would come at such a personal cost. His mother, tears streaming down her face, was shaking. She reached out to Alex, but the child was already stepping away from her, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The tyrant's ship still hovered above, ominous and deadly, while his army of robots and AI-controlled soldiers patrolled the streets below. The battle had just begun, and Earth's fate was hanging by a thread. "I'm sorry," Alex's mother whispered, her voice breaking. I never wanted this for you. You're just a child. But Alex wasn't listening. He couldn't afford to. The enemy had taken everything from him, his father, his home, his world. And he wasn't going to let them take any more. His father's words, "You are humanity's hope," rang in his ears, pushing him forward. Alex had no idea how he was going to defeat the tyrant, but he was sure of one thing: he wouldn't give up. He couldn't. As Alex made his way through the wreckage, he found himself face to face with a terrifying sight: a hulking AI-controlled robot, its mechanical eyes glowing with an eerie red light. The robot's massive frame towered over Alex, its hands reaching for him like the claws of a predator. The machine had been programmed to eliminate any threats, and Alex, despite his small size, was now its target. The robot's massive arms swung toward him, moving with lightning speed, but Alex was faster. He ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding the strike. His heart raced, but he wasn't afraid. He had no choice but to fight. The relic in his hand pulsed, and Alex felt an overwhelming surge of energy flow through him. He didn't understand it, but he knew it was the key. The robot swung again, but this time, Alex was ready. He darted in, using the environment around him to his advantage. He grabbed a piece of fallen debris and hurled it at the robot's face, causing it to stagger for a brief moment. In that moment of distraction, Alex leapt forward, slamming the relic into the robot's chest. The relic glowed brighter than ever before, sending a shockwave through the robot's circuits. Sparks flew, and the machine jerked violently before crashing to the ground with a deafening thud. Alex stood over the robot's shattered remains, breathing heavily. His chest was tight, his legs shaking, but there was no time to rest. He had just defeated the first enemy standing in his way, but there were many more to come. For the first time in his life, Alex realized something: he wasn't just an ordinary child. The relic had given him something more, something powerful. And he was going to use it to fight back. The war for Earth had truly begun. After defeating the massive AI-controlled robot, Alex was left standing in the wreckage, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. He couldn't believe what had just happened. A child, barely 12 years old, had taken down a towering machine built to obliterate entire cities. But it wasn't just his physical strength that had carried him through, there had been something else. Something that felt more powerful than anything he had ever known. The relic in his hand pulsed again, its glow dimming and brightening, as if it were alive. Alex wasn't sure what to make of it, but he felt a strange connection to it, as if it were speaking to him. As he ran his fingers over its smooth surface, a sudden wave of warmth washed over him, and he instinctively closed his eyes. In that moment, Alex understood something. The relic wasn't just a piece of ancient technology. It was more than that. It was responding to him, his thoughts, his emotions, his very essence. It was amplifying his strength. The relic wasn't just a tool, it was an extension of himself, a part of him. It reacted to his inner turmoil, his desire to fight back, and most of all, his determination to protect those he loved. As Alex's thoughts swirled with this new understanding, the relic suddenly pulsed brighter, and a soft, high-pitched hum filled the air. His eyes widened in surprise as a shimmering, translucent force field materialized around him. The energy field crackled with power, and Alex instinctively took a step forward. It was like nothing he had ever experienced before, a shield strong enough to protect him from any attack. Is this what you can do?" Alex whispered to the relic, his voice filled with awe. The field around him flickered, confirming his suspicion. This was no ordinary artifact, it was something much more advanced, more powerful. And it might be the only hope humanity had left. As the force field hummed and stabilized, Alex's mind raced. This wasn't just some defensive tool, this was a weapon. He could feel the power radiating from the relic, and the more he focused on it, the stronger the field became. But that wasn't all. He could feel another presence within it, a faint echo, almost like a whisper. It was as if the relic had its own consciousness, its own mind. As Alex concentrated, the field flickered again, expanding just slightly before contracting back into its usual protective shape. And then, without warning, the relic flashed brightly, and the force field collapsed, leaving Alex standing in the open once more. Before Alex could react, a voice echoed in his mind, low, mechanical, and cold. Force field disengaged. New function activated. Target locked. The voice startled Alex, and he stumbled backward, his heart racing. Was it talking to him? Was it the relic or something else? The voice continued, override protocol complete. Initiating combat mode. Suddenly, the relic shifted, its surface vibrating, and an array of shimmering, energy-based weapons materialized from it. Alex stared, wide-eyed, as blasters and shields began to form out of thin air. The power of the relic was far beyond anything humanity had ever created. It was like having an army of advanced weapons at his fingertips, ready to obey his every command. The real test of this newfound power was just ahead. A group of the Tyrant's soldiers appeared from behind the rubble, elite troops equipped with cloaking devices, armed with deadly laser guns. They had been dispatched to find and eliminate Alex, their advanced weapons enough to obliterate any resistance. But they didn't count on one thing, Alex's new abilities. The cloaked soldiers stalked through the wreckage, moving with stealth and precision. Alex could hear their soft footfalls, the rustling of their cloaks. He couldn't see them, but he could feel their presence, cold, menacing, and relentless. His heart pounded in his chest, but his mind was clear. He knew he had to act quickly if he was going to survive. He reached out instinctively, and the relic responded, a faint hum rising as the weapons it had created activated in unison. The first soldier materialized in front of him, but Alex was ready. As the soldier raised his laser gun, Alex's hand shot out, and the relic's energy shield formed around him. The blast hit the shield with a loud crack, but it was absorbed, leaving Alex unharmed. He was inside the protective bubble, and the soldier stood there, momentarily stunned. Before the soldier could react, Alex fired the energy blasters formed by the relic. The shot hit its target, sending the soldier stumbling backward with a burst of light. He collapsed, unconscious, on the ground. The others weren't far behind, and they emerged from their cloaking field, their weapons drawn. But Alex didn't back down. Instead, he quickly used the environment to his advantage. He ducked behind a pile of debris and used his newfound agility to stay one step ahead of the soldiers. Each time they tried to strike, Alex was already gone, moving faster, thinking quicker, using the relic to shield himself and retaliate with precision. The force field expanded when necessary, blocking the enemy's shots. The energy-based weapons took out the soldiers one by one, each burst of light flashing through the air like a streak of lightning. The battle was intense, fast-paced, and brutal. But Alex, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, outsmarted the Tyrant's soldiers at every turn. It was the ultimate underdog moment. One small child against the full might of the Galactic Tyrant's forces, and somehow, he was holding his own. As the fight raged on, Alex's heart still raced with fear. But he had no time to stop. The relic was guiding him, giving him the strength to keep going. It was his only chance, and humanity's only hope. As the last of the cloaked soldiers fell to the ground, another figure appeared from the shadows, Bonner, a soldier Alex had seen before. Bonner was a veteran of the war, one of the few who had fought against the Tyrant's forces long before Alex ever picked up the relic. Bonner was a man of few words, but his actions had always spoken louder than any words ever could. Bonner was breathing heavily, blood dripping from a wound on his shoulder. He had been fighting for what seemed like hours, and the exhaustion was evident in his eyes. But there was no time for rest. "Alex, you're not done yet," Bonner said, his voice hoarse but steady. "You need to keep moving. You need to keep fighting." Alex nodded, his breath coming in ragged gasps, but before he could say anything, Bonner pushed him toward the last remaining group of survivors hiding nearby. "Go, now." Bonner shouted. But Alex hesitated, sensing something was wrong. He turned back just in time to see Bonner make a move, a desperate move. The soldier lunged toward a nearby enemy, drawing the attention of a group of tyrant soldiers who had emerged from their cloaks. Their weapons were raised, and Alex watched in horror as Bonner was caught in their crossfire. The blaster shots rang out, and Bonner collapsed to the ground, his sacrifice a final act of bravery. His body hit the ground with a thud, and Alex rushed to his side, tears welling in his eyes. "Why?" Alex whispered, his voice breaking. Bonner's lips curled into a faint smile as he coughed up blood. "It's not about us, kid. It's about saving humanity. You're humanity's hope now. Don't waste it." With his final words, Bonner passed away. Alex felt the full weight of the soldier's sacrifice. It was the ultimate reminder of the stakes at hand. This wasn't just about surviving. This was about something greater. This was about saving humanity. As Bonner's body was still, Alex stood up, gripping the relic tightly in his hand. The pain of loss surged through him, but so did a new sense of purpose. He had to keep going. For Bonner. For his family. For Earth. The fight was far from over, but Alex now knew one thing for sure: he would never back down. The tension in the air was palpable as Alex and his ragtag group of survivors took shelter in the ruins of the once thriving metropolis. The first wave of the Galactic Tyrant's invasion had left the planet scarred. Cities were in ruins, entire landscapes burned to a crisp, and the skies were painted with the dark remnants of destroyed spacecraft. Alex's victory in the streets had been a small but significant triumph, but the battle was far from over. The tyrant, frustrated by the resistance put up by this insignificant planet, had decided to make an example of Earth. From his massive command ship, orbiting high above, the tyrant looked down on the planet like a vengeful god. He had a plan, one that would ensure no one, human or alien, would dare challenge him again. Orbital bombardment authorized, the tyrant's voice echoed coldly, his AI-controlled system responding in a smooth, mechanical tone. Deploy destruction protocol. Begin eradication. In a flash, the order was executed. From space, enormous ships released devastating energy pulses, firing beams that struck Earth with precision. The bombers unleashed their deadly payloads, causing explosions that shook the very core of the planet. Cities erupted into flames, oceans boiled, and forests turned to ash in the blink of an eye. Alex watched from the broken remnants of a shelter, his heart sinking as the world around him seemed to disintegrate. The world was burning, and it felt as though there was nothing he could do. The relic pulsed weakly in his hand, as if it could sense his despair. But then, something unexpected happened. The relic began to hum. The glow intensified, and Alex felt a rush of energy surge through him, connecting him to the artifact in a way he had never felt before. He closed his eyes, reaching out mentally, trying to tap into the relic's vast, hidden power. Suddenly, he understood, this wasn't just a weapon. It was a key. A key to unlocking something that could stop the tyrant. With a deep breath, Alex focused his mind. The relic responded, and in an instant, he had a vision, a network of cloaked ships, their presence hidden from Earth's defenses, all controlled by the tyrant's fleet. Cloaking devices, the pinnacle of the tyrant's technology, rendered them invisible to the naked eye, allowing them to unleash destruction from above without fear of retaliation. But the relic, Alex now understood, had the ability to disrupt these cloaking fields. With his new power unlocked, he reached out again, and a ripple of energy spread from the relic, cascading through the air. One by one, the cloaked ships in orbit began to shimmer and flicker, their cloaks malfunctioning, revealing their true forms. The tyrant's fleet, once invisible and invincible, was now exposed. Alex's mind raced as he took control of the moment. He could see the bombers now, their large frames hovering ominously above the planet, poised to strike again. The tyrant's forces had no idea that their cover had been blown. They were flying blind, completely unaware of the threat Alex posed. "I've got you now," Alex whispered to himself, the relic still glowing in his hand. As the tyrant's bombers came into view, Alex's group of rebel survivors, led by the battle-hardened soldier Bonner's former allies, prepared to infiltrate a nearby space station. The station was damaged from the initial bombardment, its control systems barely functional. It was their last chance to strike back at the tyrant's command center. Alex, despite the exhaustion weighing on him, was determined to push forward. He knew that if they could gain control of the space station, they could use it to launch a counterattack, disrupting the tyrant's operations and buying Earth some time. The group's plan was simple: infiltrate the space station, locate the tyrant's main AI core, and take control of the station's weapon systems. But as they made their way through the station's wreckage, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The station was silent, too silent, and he knew that something worse was waiting for them. The tyrant wasn't one to leave things to chance. He would have sent his best AI enforcers to protect his command center. As Alex and his team moved deeper into the station, the eerie silence was shattered by the unmistakable hum of cloaked enemies. Without warning, a group of the tyrant's AI enforcers materialized from thin air, their forms shimmering into focus. These were the elite soldiers, the ones that were part human, part machine, and all deadly. They had been programmed to hunt down any threat to the tyrant's rule, and now Alex and his group were their targets. The fight was brutal and fast-paced. Alex, driven by a need for vengeance and a deep desire to protect his home, acted without hesitation. His newfound abilities, boosted by the relic, allowed him to move faster, think clearer, and strike harder than ever before. The AI soldiers fired laser shots, their weapons crackling with deadly energy, but Alex was quicker. Using the relic's power, he deflected the blasts, sending them ricocheting off the walls and into the station's delicate infrastructure. The entire station seemed to come alive with the clash of high-tech weapons. Alex darted through the corridors, using the relic to hack into the station's systems and disable the enemy's shields. With every move, Alex outsmarted the AI enforcers, turning their own technology against them. One by one, the AI soldiers fell, their systems overridden by Alex's brilliant strategy. The relic pulsed brighter as Alex hacked deeper into the system, overriding security measures and locking down the station's defenses. The AI enforcers, once impenetrable, now found themselves trapped in their own virtual prison. Alex had turned the tables. Imagine this: Alex is sprinting through the corridors of the damaged space station, lasers flashing around him as he narrowly avoids their deadly beams. The station is alive with the hum of energy, the flashing lights of malfunctioning systems, and the shrieks of malfunctioning AI. Alex ducks and weaves, his movements almost fluid, as he uses the relic's powers to manipulate the station's tech. With a sudden motion, Alex slams his hand onto a control panel, and a series of doors close behind him, sealing the incoming enemies. As the AI soldiers approach, Alex raises his hand, and the relic responds, energy crackling in the air, creating a protective shield. The shield absorbs the incoming fire, and Alex, without hesitation, turns their own weapons against them. As the station's AI systems begin to malfunction, Alex takes advantage of every opening, his mind working overtime as he hacks into the central core, forcing the tyrant's AI to turn on its own enforcers. The entire space station becomes a battleground of wits and technology, as Alex and the tyrant's machines battle for control. Throughout the intense fight, Alex could feel the weight of what he was doing. The relic gave him strength, but it also took something from him. The energy required to control the relic's powers drained him. Each victory over the AI soldiers was a victory, yes, but it came at a cost. His body was growing weaker, his energy starting to wane. The memory of Bonner's sacrifice haunted him, driving him to push through the pain. "I can't stop now," Alex whispered to himself, his voice strained. He could feel the weight of his responsibility, the pressure of being humanity's last hope. The fear of failure gnawed at him, but he couldn't let it control him. He had come too far, lost too much, to give up now. As the last of the AI enforcers fell, Alex collapsed against the wall, his legs too weak to support him. His heart raced in his chest, the adrenaline from the fight still coursing through him, but he knew this wasn't over yet. The station's central AI was still functioning, and the tyrant was still out there, waiting. But now Alex knew one thing for sure, he had the power to take the fight to him. With the relic in his hand, Alex stood up, exhaustion written on his face but determination in his eyes. The final battle was ahead, and he was ready. The skies over Earth were dark with the shadows of destruction. The planet had already endured so much, the orbital bombardments, the endless waves of tyrant soldiers, and the devastating losses that had come with each battle. But the fight was far from over. It was only just beginning. High above, in the cold, unfeeling expanse of space, the Galactic Tyrant watched Earth burn. His massive ship, a colossal fortress that could dwarf even the mightiest human creations, descended from the heavens. It was a sight that filled every person left on Earth with dread. This ship was the embodiment of his rule, a harbinger of pain, death, and absolute control. Its sheer size and the massive engines thrumming within it shook the atmosphere as it approached the planet. From the ground below, Alex and his allies, hiding in the remains of a once thriving city, could only watch in helpless awe as the tyrant's vessel cast its shadow over the ruins of humanity. The air was thick with dust, debris, and the acrid scent of burning structures. Yet, despite the overwhelming power of the enemy, Alex's determination burned hotter than ever. The relic pulsed in his hand, and he could feel the weight of the coming battle press down on his chest. This was it, the final showdown. The city, now reduced to rubble, would be the battleground. A place that had once been home to millions of people was now the site of humanity's greatest struggle for survival. Alex knew that the endgame was close. If he failed now, everything his parents had sacrificed would be for nothing. But Alex was not going to let that happen. As the tyrant's ship descended into Earth's atmosphere, its massive guns already charging for the final destruction of the planet, Alex knew that his time had come. He was ready. The ground shook beneath Alex's feet as the tyrant's ship touched down in the heart of the city. Its landing was cataclysmic. The blast from its engines tore through the streets, sending shockwaves that knocked Alex off his feet. Dust and debris swirled around him, but he quickly rose, his eyes blazing with the fury of 1,000 storms. From the heart of the wreckage, the tyrant emerged. The tyrant's voice, smooth and cold, echoed across the battlefield. "So, the child has come to challenge me. You think you can stop me? I have crushed civilizations and obliterated entire species. You, a mere child, think you can change the course of history?" His voice was mechanical but carried the weight of countless victories. Alex stood tall, the relic glowing brightly in his hands. His body was bruised, exhausted from the battles before, but his heart was stronger than ever. You may have destroyed planets, but you've never understood the strength that comes from fighting for what's right. The tyrant's eyes, glowing with a malevolent, robotic light, narrowed. He understood now. The child had power, and it was something that couldn't be easily quantified. The relic, an artifact of unknown origin, was connected to something deeper than technology, it was connected to humanity's soul. The tyrant was no longer amused. He was furious. "You want to challenge me, child?" The tyrant sneered, and from behind him, a hologram flickered into existence. The image was of Alex's parents, his mother and father, both smiling as they had when they were alive. But something was wrong. Their faces were distorted, their eyes hollow, like the tyrant was trying to mock Alex's emotions. "Look at what you've lost," the tyrant said, his voice dripping with malice. "Look at what I can take from you. What makes you think your tiny heart can withstand the weight of the galaxy?" Alex froze for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. The sight of his parents, his father, a soldier who had died protecting him, and his mother, a gentle soul, brought a flood of emotion crashing down on him. For a moment, the holographic images felt real, and Alex was overwhelmed by the loss. But then, he remembered his father's last words. "You are humanity's hope." The words burned in his mind like a fire, reigniting the strength inside him. The tyrant may have taken his parents, but he would never take away the legacy they had left behind. Alex's anger surged, and with a roar, he slammed his fist down on the relic. The hologram of his parents flickered, distorting as if the relic was fighting back. "I will never let you manipulate me," Alex shouted, his voice filled with defiance. The tyrant sneered. "You are nothing." But Alex wasn't done. With all the strength he could muster, he clenched the relic in his hand and focused. The power of humanity's will, the love for his parents, and the desire to protect the Earth flowed into him like an unstoppable current. The relic pulsed brightly, and suddenly, an invisible force field exploded around him, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The tyrant's mocking expression faltered for just a second, before he returned to his cold, calculating demeanor. "So you have some power. But it is nothing compared to what I possess." The tyrant unleashed a barrage of energy blasts from his massive ship, each one capable of annihilating everything in its path. The ground shook with each strike, and explosions erupted in every direction. But Alex, moving with agility and speed that even the tyrant's advanced AI could not predict, dodged each blast, narrowly avoiding death with every second. He sprinted across the ruins, using the environment to his advantage, ducking behind collapsed buildings, leaping over debris, and weaving through craters. The tyrant's attacks were relentless, but Alex wasn't just fighting with power. He was fighting with heart. Every time the tyrant's ship launched another devastating attack, Alex used the relic to deflect the blasts, redirecting the energy back at the ship. The tyrant's ship reeled under the onslaught, its shields beginning to crack under the sheer force of Alex's attacks. But even though Alex was fighting with everything he had, he knew the battle wouldn't be won by strength alone. He had to use his mind. The tyrant's ship was enormous, but it had weaknesses. There were gaps in its defense, areas where the AI was vulnerable. Alex could see it, his mind racing as he studied the ship's movements. With the relic amplifying his every move, Alex hacked into the tyrant's systems, bypassing the ship's AI security protocols. For a brief moment, the ship's weapons systems glitched, and Alex seized the opportunity. The final sequence was nothing short of cinematic. Alex sprinted towards the heart of the ship, narrowly dodging another barrage of lasers. He could feel the relic's power thrumming in his hand, guiding him, helping him find the right path. At the last second, Alex leapt onto a damaged platform, charging the relic one last time. "You may have conquered galaxies," he shouted at the tyrant, "but you will never defeat humanity's heart." With those words, Alex unleashed the relic's full power. The energy radiated out in a blinding flash. The tyrant's AI core, the heart of his invincible ship, exploded in a shower of sparks and energy. The massive vessel shuddered, and in that moment, Alex saw the tyrant's face, distorted, confused, and finally, defeated. The tyrant's reign of terror ended with a single blast from a child who had discovered the power within him. The relic, glowing brightly, now silent, had fulfilled its purpose. Earth had won. As the tyrant's ship began to crumble and fall from the sky, Alex stood amidst the wreckage, breathing heavily, exhausted beyond measure. He had fought with everything he had, and now, humanity had a chance to rebuild. But as he looked around, he remembered the cost. The city was in ruins, and many had fallen in this fight. Yet, in the quiet aftermath, Alex knew that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or weapons, it was its heart, its will to survive. As the dust settled, Alex looked to the horizon, the sun beginning to break through the smoke-filled sky. The battle was over, but the war for humanity's future had just begun. And Alex was ready to lead the way. "This is just the beginning," he whispered to himself, his voice full of hope. The final confrontation had been won, but the future was still unwritten. The battle for Earth had been long, brutal, and full of loss, but it was over. The Galactic Tyrant, once a force that seemed unstoppable, was no more. His ships, his armies, and his technological supremacy had been shattered by the will of a single child, a child who, with the help of a mysterious relic, had fought with a strength and determination that none could have predicted. As the dust settled, the people of Earth began to rebuild. Cities that had been reduced to rubble were slowly being reconstructed. The fires that had burned for days finally began to die out, and the skies, once dark with the shadow of death, were now clear. The survivors, those who had fought and bled for the planet, could finally begin the painful process of healing.